Okay, today we're going to learn about simplifying trigonometric expressions. But before we proceed, let us recall first the different trigonometric identities. Based on what we have learned last time through the super hexagon, we have this set of trigonometric identities that you can see now in your screen. Okay, so we have tangent is equal to sine over cosine, sine is cosine over cotangent, cosine is cotangent over cosecant, cotangent is cosecant over secant, cosecant is secant over tangent, tangent is equal to tangent, secant is equal to tangent over sine, and so on. And there are approximately 30 plus or more than that trigonometric identities. So now we have here example of trigonometric equations or expressions that we are going to simplify. So number one, we have secant theta times cosine theta. So first, you are going to rewrite the function or trigonometric function into sine or cosine. So secant, based on our trigonometric identities here or here, okay, secant is equal to 1 over cosine. So that will be 1 over cosine theta times cosine theta over 1. Therefore, we can cancel this out, and the simplest form of this expression is 1. So secant theta times cosine theta is equivalent to 1. Number 2, cotangent theta times sine theta. Of course, we're going to rewrite this function into sine or cosine. So cotangent, based on our identity here, cotangent is the reciprocal of tangent. So cotangent will be cosine theta over sine theta. So this simply means cosine theta over sine theta times sine theta. So that will be, cancel this out, sine and sine. So what is left is cosine theta. Therefore, cotangent theta times sine theta is cosine theta. How about 1 plus tangent squared theta? 1 plus tangent squared theta based on our identity. So 1 here, tangent squared theta plus 1 is equal to secant squared theta. So the simplest form for here is secant squared theta. Number 4. Number 4, we have sine squared theta plus cosine squared theta. Take note, this is an identity also. And that will be equivalent to 1. So this is equal to 1. Let's proceed with number 5. Number 5. Okay, number 6. Okay, number 6, we have tangent squared theta times cosecant squared theta. So tangent squared theta is sine squared theta over cosine squared theta times cosecant theta is 1 over sine squared theta. Cancel the sine squared and sine squared. What is left is 1 over cosine squared theta. And 1 over cosine squared theta, based on our identity, 1 over cosine is secant. So we have secant squared theta. Number 7. Number 7 is sine theta times tangent theta times cotangent theta and cosecant theta. So we have sine theta times tangent is sine theta over cosine theta. Cotangent is cosine theta over sine theta. and cosecant is 1 over sine theta. Cancel the sine and the sine. Sine, also with the sine, cosine, and cosine. So what is left is 1. Number 8. Remember, sine squared theta plus cosine squared theta is equivalent to 1. So that will be 1 over cosine squared theta. 1 over cosine is equivalent to secant squared theta. Okay, 1 over cosine squared theta is secant squared theta. Here, for number 9, secant theta minus sine theta times tangent theta. So, we're going to rewrite first into sine or cosine. Secant is 1 over cosine theta minus sine theta multiply to sine theta over cosine theta, which is equivalent to tangent theta. And that becomes 1 over cosine theta minus sine times sine, that will be sine squared theta over cosine theta. Take note that cosine theta and cosine theta, they have the same denominator. So copy the denominator, which is the cosine. Then you are going to add or subtract the numerator. So 1 minus sine squared theta. Remember that 1 minus sine squared theta here is equivalent to cosine squared theta. So that will be cosine squared theta over cos theta. So cancel the 1 cosine. So we have cosine theta over cosine theta, because cosine squared theta is equivalent to cosine times cosine. So cancel the cosine. What is left is cosine theta. Then the simplest form of secant theta minus sine theta times tangent theta is cosine theta. Let's proceed with number 10. Number 10, we have secant squared x minus 1. So the angle now here is x. So secant squared x minus 1. Take note that this is also an identity. Okay? Secant here, secant squared x or secant squared theta minus 1 is equal to tangent squared theta. So this will become tangent squared x over secant squared x. Now, tangent is sine squared x over cosine squared x over secant will be 1 over cosine squared x. Okay, so that becomes sine squared x over cosine squared x times the reciprocal of this will be cosine squared x over 1. Cancel the cosine. What is left is sine squared x. Okay, so this is the simplest form for this expression. Number 11, cosecant x. So cosecant x over sine x minus cotangent x over tan x. So remember that cosecant x is 1 over sine. Cotangent is cosine over sine. So we have here cosecant is 1 over sine x over sine x, the denominator, minus cotangent is cosine x over sine x. Then over this one, tangent x is sine x over cosine x. Okay, so that becomes 1 over sine x here times the reciprocal of this is 1 over sine x minus here cosine x over sine x times the reciprocal of this, we have cosine x over sine x. So that becomes 1 over sine squared x, because sine x times sine x is sine squared x, minus cosine times cosine will be cosine squared x over sine x times sine x is sine squared x. They have the same denominator, so we are going to copy the denominator sine squared x and 1 minus cosine squared x. Take note that 1 minus cosine squared x here is an identity in which 1 minus cosine squared is equal to sine squared. So, therefore, this becomes sine squared x over sine squared x, and that is equivalent to 1. So, the simplest form for this expression is 1. Number 12. Secant squared theta minus tangent squared theta plus cotangent squared theta. Take note that this is also an identity. What is secant squared theta minus tangent squared theta? Here, secant squared theta minus tangent squared theta is 1. So this becomes 1 plus cotangent squared theta, because secant squared theta minus tangent squared theta is equivalent to 1. So what is 1 minus cotangent squared theta? That is also another identity. So 1 plus cotangent squared theta is equivalent to cosecant theta. So the final answer here is cosecant squared theta. Number 13. So number 13, we have cosine x, okay, times secant x can be 1 over cosine x minus cosine x over 1 over cosine x. So cancel this out, right? So what is left is 1. So 1 minus here cosine x over 1 times reciprocal of this will be cosine x over 1. So that will be 1 minus cosine x times cosine x is cosine squared x. And remember that 1 minus cosine squared x is an identity also. So we have 1 minus cosine squared x is equivalent to sine squared x. So this is now the simplest form for this expression number 13.